How do I start a voice agency? What niche do I focus on? Everything seems so overwhelming. I don't even know where to get started in the first place. These are all questions I hear inside of our community every single day because it's really a struggle for people to wrap their head around how they can use voice AI to capitalize on it, build solutions that both benefit their clients as well as them, and how they just actually get started. So this video is going to be my approach of helping you understand a basic concept or process on how you can get started in the voice AI space in an easy way made for beginners so that you are not bound right from the start to complicated responsibilities and potentially figuring out a lot of more legal cases and getting yourself into trouble. At the end of this video, you will have a clear understanding of which parts to start with, which parts to do next, until you reach a point where you can actually deliver a project and start scaling or niching down. I'm going to explain you all of that on the screen right here. And once jumping over right now, we can see a Miro board where I just have a little presentation for you starting with voice AI agency process for beginners. So this whole concept is literally evolved after talking to thousands of community members about what they are currently struggling with, as well as how they try to get started in the voice AI space. And we boiled it down to a concept that we know works because we're seeing our first members closing their own $8,000 to $10,000 to $15,000 deals, which is just awesome to see. And all of that is thanks to these concepts that we've developed and put in place, making sure that you can get started easily. And with that out of the way, what is the first thing you should do in the voice AI space? What is the first thing you should do when starting an agency? And it's most likely not what you expect, and because it is mostly a boring thing that you need to do in the first place, which is learning the skills about voice AI. This is why we have this little slide right here. You gotta really understand what voice AI is, how it works, not the whole technical side, so you don't need to learn coding or anything. It can be done in a complete no-code way, but you really need to understand the concept and the structure of it. This is why I have here a little terminology sheet which just contains a small list of things that you should definitely understand. And this is so small that you should know 100% of those things. You should know what an orchestration layer is, STS, TTS, LLM, etc. You should also know API webhooks, telephony, workflow automations, trigger actions, prompt engineering. All of those things need to be clear to you. If they aren't, do research about it, try understanding it. Head into our free community. The link for that is, by the way, in the description. We have free courses teaching you all of those things so you can understand what they are, how they apply, etc. And on top of that, to get you a little bit more of extra details, I'm also adding another cheat sheet with a whole terminology stack of a lot of more keywords that are really important right below in the description. So you're most welcome to just download that completely for free and start learning. Now, this, in my opinion, is really the most crucial part because it's gonna hit you in mostly any stage of the business, whether you're going to build the solutions yourself, whether you're outsourcing the building of the solutions, the marketing, the sales, the delivery, the scaling, it is literally going to affect anything. So you definitely need to understand what voice AI is, how it works, and how you can implement it. Without this, I promise you, you will not have a successful business because you cannot even guide people, even if you outsource it. Because what are they going to do? What are they creating for you that is bringing value if you don't even understand the value? And unfortunately, this is also the thing that probably takes you the longest, depending on how technically your background is. So if you're already an industry expert in a specific niche and you probably have worked with computers, you know your way around ChatGPT, etc., you already have a solid foundation that helps you to get into those things easier. Because you can even leverage ChatGPT to make things more visual, right? It's another thing. We can provide you information, but you still need to leverage it and adapt it to a way that you understand it. So that is just something to keep in mind. Then once you understand the concept and you actually know what voice AI is and what it does, it helps you go into the next step, which we're going right now, which is identifying use cases. Because once you're able to understand how the voice AI stack works and what it actually offers, you'll have a much easier way on identifying what these things can be actually good for. So if you're already an industry expert in a specific domain, you know for sure whether or not your company has phone calls and where you see the potential to possibly optimize them or automate them, which gives you a massive advantage because you already have awareness of the problems that this industry or that specific client faces. This is something that a lot of beginners don't really have. This is something that someone that comes from a completely different, unrelated thing and doesn't even know about specific industry expertise, they don't have that, so they need to learn that by themselves from different methods that are also outlined in the course. Things like Google, you gotta research your stuff, do keyword research, check out Google Trends, go into forums, check out YouTube video comments, see what people are asking, see the pain points that they're having, and trying to guess from there which issues they have, which pain points they have, and from there you can understand and identify use cases. This is also why I mentioned as the first point right here, you should preferably use your industry experience, if you have any, to see whether or not you can implement these solutions into your industry. Because it puts you ahead so much, because you don't need to learn and understand the pain points in the first place, because you already know something, right? And this knowledge is going to save you a lot of time instead of researching a different industry. Like Alex Hormozi always says, you better want to work with informed pessimism instead of uninformed optimism, because it brings you a lot further ahead. If you start in a new industry, you gotta be facing all of those problems, including figuring out those issues in the first place. Then, whether or not you have experience, you can also just research industries of your choice and see how they could benefit from the technology. For that, you can use what I already mentioned, things like Google, Reddit, YouTube, wherever people can ask things under videos where you basically can, where someone else shares tutorials. Let's say you go on YouTube, you go into my videos and you see someone is posting something about a business use case or has questions about it. I know for sure that they are struggling with something, so I can try to figure out what they're actually struggling with. It brings me so much ahead. And this counts for any kind of niche. So if you're into plumbing, for example, go over to a plumber channel, see what they are offering. See if there's anyone making videos about AI for plumbers, see what they are asking. There are tons of methods that you can use to actually get deeper into that, understand their pain points, and then leverage things for finding use cases. And once you have use cases, which doesn't need to be just one, you can choose whatever you want, whichever one you think has the most value, and then you start building out a solution for yourself. And I'm saying for yourself because you're going to use it as a combination of things because you want to learn, right? So you want to have a learning experience and actually understand how relevant it gets to actually build the solution, so you can see as well if that could potentially bring any kind of value to the client. Now, there is a lot of guesswork involved, especially if you don't have any previous industry experience or you potentially don't even know which kind of problems are in the industry that you're trying to focus on. So this is something where you just trial and error and you see if you can provide a solution or if you can create a solution that brings value in some way to a client. Now, to help you get started with finding a potential niche, I also added some more questions down here that you can use with or without industry experience, that is completely up to you, that just help you getting a better idea when things could become interesting with voice AI. And with voice AI, in that case, I talk mainly about telephony. So if you just want to implement voice AI into phone calls. Now, this is just one specific, let's say, industry inside of the industry. That's one niche inside the big space of voice AI. Voice AI, for us, we offer solutions that are not just phone. There's tons of more things you can do about productivity, websites with voice AI. You can build tools around it, SaaS. There is a massive potential and it's insane. So this one focuses mainly about phone calling because that is just one of the hottest things right now. And it is something that over 2025 will definitely scale. So go through them. I'm just gonna go over a couple so you can ask yourself, do they have manual calls, whether or not they have phone calls in their company in the first place? Are they using an IVR system? If you don't know about that, simply think about you calling some kind of hotline and they say, if you want to speak to customer support, please press 5, something like that, right? You have these old systems where you need to press numbers and then you're basically being redirected or transferred to another human or maybe to another AI, however that looks like. So that is something where you can also automate things because we had this many times, especially with bigger clients that use IVR systems that we can completely get rid of and replace with a more natural sounding and optimized AI voice agent that speaks just like you. So if you go through those, you will definitely get some ideas on what might be a possible use case that you can cover because all of those things are proven and all of those things are basically ways on where you can implement voice AI, and that is literally something we've did for all of those situations. Another thing I want to say is you don't need to wrap your head around too many of them. Literally just choose one or two and try things out and see that you get a starting point because that's all you need. And please also don't think that you need to stick forever with the solution that you're creating. It is literally just for you a gateway that you're going to use to actually start your business. In the way, business is always designed in a more flexible way. You need to be flexible and adaptable, especially in a space like this. So for you understanding that whatever solution you choose now is just a gateway to get you to where you want to go, which is probably building up a full agency or making money with this or leveraging it in some way, it becomes clear that this is just a way of you getting attention in the first place, building something out, getting more data, and then potentially refining the offer and maybe even pivoting towards something else. And I'm mentioning this because I know I especially had a lot of pressure myself when I started out in the beginning. I didn't know what I was doing. I tried to stick with one solution. It didn't work out and I stuck more with it and got super stressed. It didn't work, so I had to pivot completely. But that's not the way it works. You want to have a small little offer, some solution that works and brings value at least at one point, which gives you the entry into talking to a client, getting them interested, and from there you can do a lot of more things once you have the trust of the client. So that's something to keep in mind for identifying the use cases. And once you've gone through that, once you've built out a couple of use cases, you now see and understand better what actually works and what can bring a value to the client. Then it's time to actually get more into your technical aspect of the agency, which is just setting up a more professional way of you doing things. And I'm mentioning this with caution because I know you can get stuck on that and spend months of doing that. So let's just head over here to the next part, which is having a professional tech setup. And I want to make sure that you understand that a tech setup means literally just having a professional view of it. That is not just the domain or the website. This is literally as well the email. If someone contacts me with an @gmail.com domain, they are most likely not that professional because they don't even have the money or potential of setting up a proper domain and just representing themselves as a business. So for us, it's usually less relevant, which is also one of the reasons why I tell every of our students to really upgrade to a custom domain and make yourself look professional. And one of the biggest things that I want to say upfront before even diving into this, and I'm going to also mention this down here, do not spend too much time on a technical setup. I know that in the beginning things can seem complicated, and depending on your tech background, it might take you a little bit longer than others. It might take you less time. Really depends on your skill set. But I'm saying just spend hours, not even days, or definitely not weeks. Because I've seen it myself that people are getting stuck on this thing, trying to optimize it for weeks, months, which is insane because you spend so much time on things that don't really bring you further, because this business setup stuff doesn't make you money. It's literally just for increasing authority and basically help you to have a better picture and then potentially help you during the sales aspect of being more professional, giving you more authority, and therefore maybe helping you make more money, but it is very passive. So, and this is usually not even related to the website. I'm more talking about email. So that's another thing to keep in mind. So the next thing I have written down here is having a minimal website that features a lead landing page, is obviously the first thing, an about section, which just features who you are, what you do, potentially bring in your industry experience in that case as well. The services, which just includes the services that you want to deliver, which can be literally just at the beginning, the use cases you have identified that seem relevant because you just want to have like an entry offer. And a contact page. So the contact page can be either a contact form or it can be a booking link, which I definitely recommend because people like personal contact. So if you offer a booking link where people can schedule an appointment in your calendar and you can have a live call with them and basically go through whatever pain points they have on a call with them, it's going to be a lot more beneficial for you. So definitely make sure to have this booking system in place. There are tons of providers that you can use completely for free, like Calendly, Cal.com. You can even just use Zoom for it in combination with a Google Calendar. There are tons of options for it. Just choose one, whichever you like. In our course, we have a complete section about that where we focus more about which tools we are using, how our tech stack looks like, so that you can basically just bootstrap things a little bit quicker. But especially in the beginning, it doesn't really matter. You just want to give people an easy entry of booking an appointment with you so you can help them directly on a call and build up authority and a direct personal connection. So down here, I just have a couple of more notes I quickly want to go over. Do not spend more than 3 hours on a website. This is sounds like very less, but I definitely promise you, you don't really need more. There are so many no-code Webflow or workflow builder like Webflow, etc., that allow you to build websites super easily without any technical knowledge. You can just use a template, you customize it a little bit. And if you want, you can also just generate it with AI. You can use V0, you can use Lovable, Bolt.new. All of those platforms allow you to create a whole website more custom coded without any coding knowledge, by just you writing things conversationally into a text box. Now, the reason why I don't really recommend this to our members is because if something goes wrong or you want to adjust something later down the line, you need to have coding knowledge, or let's say the AI maybe makes a mistake and doesn't really understand your requirement, it can mess things up quite a lot. So then it's still harder for you to fix things and you need to spend more time on it, which is exactly what we try to eliminate from the beginning, because all you want is a working website, basic information, and a possibility to book to you into your calendar. So this is the most important thing. That's why we say don't spend too much time on a website. It really doesn't matter. Even the color stack doesn't matter too much. Don't worry about the logos. Don't worry about the whole color palette. In the beginning, no one will care about that. It's just that you have something that looks professional, gives the client the possibility of checking it out and saying, okay, yeah, this person actually has a website, looks good, I can trust him in some way, and then they reach out to you a lot easier than just having a Gmail domain, for example, and a landing page that has literally zero content. And lastly, the overall thing, which I think is super important, this doesn't make you money, at least not direct, so don't spend too much time, which is also just another way of saying don't spend too much time on it. There are things where you can make a lot more out of your time, which we're going to dive into right now, which is kind of the next thing right here, which is marketing, because that's where you should actually start spending your time on. Marketing is the first thing that you always want to do. Once you have the little tech site ready, spend a couple of hours on, you dive right into marketing, and this is where you spend 70% of your time. And the rest literally goes into you educating yourself more on voice AI and trying to understand the use cases more, dive deeper into a specific software of your choice. We often working with VAPI and retail, so that is something to look into. It's also covered in our course. We have complete beginner tutorials right there. But the reason I'm saying this is because you are in the game for making money. You're in the game for helping other businesses make something, and that only works if you do marketing. If no one knows about you, you will not make any money. You will not make any other business money. You will never get any case studies. You basically have a business that's not really a business because it's just you building things without ever reaching out to a client. And I know this is a very hard step to do because people are often struggling a lot just reaching out to people, or maybe also being afraid about rejection, especially if it comes to things like cold emailing, cold calling, which is also an option that I've seen some of our members do. In my opinion, not my favorite way. I usually prefer going the personal brand route, which is also the reason why I mentioned it right here, because personal brand gives you the most leverage later down the line. Yes, it is not the fastest thing. So if you are not in a super hyper niche where you already have connections that you can leverage to sell your solutions to, building a personal brand is going to take a little bit longer, and we're talking about a couple of months, but it's something that is best to start now because now it's the earliest time and the only time. So whenever you see that in your series about building a business, definitely start with your personal brand and share experience about what you learned previously. This can even be the solutions that you build. Just share something, maybe share it as a template, put your word out, put your name out. People will see it, they will recognize it, they will see you as an expert in that specific niche the more you build, right? And that's something you want to get up because that gives you authority and helps other people to find you, come back to you and ask you for advice, ask you for help, which again then helps you just to sell in your offers. So that's definitely something to do. And let's say, for example, you already have some capital available that you can use. I definitely recommend running ads because it helps you to get in front of a lot of more faces, which really, really accelerates as well what you can offer. And there's another whole thing around ads why I really like it, because you can generalize your offers more and can get a lot of different attention, which is something that I really, really recommend as well. But I'm going to dive into this at the end of the marketing session because I believe it's so valuable that I need to talk a little bit more about it. Now, this part about leveraging your solutions from step 2 goes into that. You build something out, you see whether or not it has value, and you share that knowledge on social media, on kind of any platforms. I definitely recommend something like LinkedIn or YouTube, where you can build up your personal brand and other people can reach out to you. So leveraging what you're building is kind of like a nice way of just using the time that you already invested to share it with others and basically build up more value. And then going along with this, it's obviously as well build and refine your offering. You need to have some sort of offer that is really, really important. This kind of goes together what I'm going to share at the end of the marketing part right here, which is the general setup. Because in the beginning, your offer is definitely not going to be perfect. And in fact, it's going to be far from perfect. And that is because you don't know your exact ideal customer profile. You don't know what they actually want and you don't know what they actually value. So there are a lot of things that go into it that you really need to figure out to understand what you can actually sell to it. So build and refine your offering doesn't mean you have a fixed offer and that's the offer you always need to run with forever. You try to find an entry offer, that's what we always call it, or basically a front-facing offer, which I'm also going to cover a bit more down. But a front-facing offer basically means that you have an easy entry for a client to just get them hooked on whatever you offer, build a small solution out of it that solves one specific issue, and get their trust, show them that you can actually deliver on something, which then makes them more comfortable on working more with you. And that is when you actually start deploying more solutions for them. And because you did the things in the way I lined it out here, you learn the things in the first step, so you understand voice AI, you build solutions, you now have the experience of seeing also other patterns based on the problems that the client has, where you can implement solutions for their business. So this is going to be super powerful when you want to upsell things and make sure you have a client that sticks with you and works with you on a longer basis. So if you paid attention, you probably now already see the connection between a front-facing offer and the general setup. Because if you have a specific offer that is front-facing, so a small little offer that you can offer to the clients just to get them in the door, you have the possibility of creating marketing material that is more general, even for ads, that brings in a lot of different niches into the door and just offer them something specific that is, let's say, not industry specific, but use case specific, because a lot of people struggling with customer support, that's, for example, not a specific industry, right? So if you focus on one solution that solves customer support for XYZ, you will get a lot of inquiries. And from these inquiries, you will definitely get responses from those clients. And whichever one comes first, or whichever one you deem the most relevant or valuable, in case you have multiple ones, you build out a solution for them. And that's when you really start diving in deep building out a super powerful solution and gather data on it, because that's all you need. In the beginning, we always think we need to really focus fully on the niche, trying to understand or niche down super specific, make sure you build everything out. But that's not the way it works, because you most likely don't even know the problems. So having the setup general, but finding a niche for yourself, so you have some sort of touch point where you can build things on and learn them from. Then go general for marketing side, bring in people and sell them a solution that is in some way vertical, but gets the attention for a mass, so for a different industry, for different industries. This just opens the door of people finding you, seeing that there might be some interest, and then they will reach out to you and you can build out a solution and then start niching down based on that solution. Because literally all you need is one client that you can solve something for. And if that is going to be helpful for the client that you're solving the problem for, you just double down. You build it out, you see if they have more struggle, you try to increase the whole scope of the project, bring in more features, leverage the information, leverage the data. You really understand how much time you save them, how much more money you make them, how much human error you remove from their actual operations. And all of this can be used to refine your offer, which then gives you data-backed information, which makes it just so sexy for people whenever you sell something to. If you can tell a person that you can literally guarantee them to solve X, Y, Z with a solution because you have data-backed information that you can show them, you can show them, yeah, this is what we did for this client, this was the input, this is how much I got out of it, this is how much he saved, they're gonna love it. They're definitely gonna love it. And this can still be an entry offer where you then sell something bigger on the back end, right? You just wanna get them in the door. This is the most important thing to understand. Now I have a couple of notes here. Some of them I mentioned already. We're just gonna briefly go over it so I can cover them. First thing is, make it clear what you help your clients with. Obviously, you wanna have something that is interesting to the client, so should be focused around the pain points that they have, that they can relate, and the solution that you can offer them, meaning which kind of benefits you give them or results you give them. That's super important. And then we have here, marketing can be more general. Exactly what I said. You do the marketing more general. You find a niche just so you have some guidance for yourself, and then market general. Choosing a niche doesn't marry you. This is more like to emphasize again that when you choose a niche, you don't need to stick to this niche. If you take a specific solution that works, you can implement it for a lot of different industries. And if even none of them works, which I highly doubt, you can still switch it to a different one. But you have definitely gained some learnings and some experience on how that works. And obviously, by the way, if you're running ads, there might be a lot of other things that would potentially have clients not reach out to you, which might be the creative, which one of the most important things, which now can be done very, very easily with things like ChatGPT and their new image model, or even the copy. So if the copy sucks and you don't know exactly what to focus on, that might be another thing. So personal brand is probably the best way for you if you have literally zero idea. Even though it takes a little bit longer, you get the hang of it and you get people reaching out to you. So that's super powerful. Then one thing that I tell any of our students is stay consistent. I think this is literally one of the most important things. Stay consistent in being accountable. If you're none of both, you're probably gonna fail. It's kind of inevitable because you just don't spend the time on it and you don't have it's not a priority for you. So it's not as important. So if you're neither of that, you're definitely gonna fail. So if you're not consistent, just don't even try. But if you have the motivation and you can somehow keep consistent, or you want our help to be consistent, because we can actually help you stay accountable. So that's another thing to keep in mind. Then results take time, so be patient. Depending on your background, depending how much industry experience you have and how many contacts you have to reach out to, this might take a different amount of time. We have seen people in our community closing things after a couple of weeks of joining. We have some that now start after 2 months to actually see the first results, closing the first clients. So there is a big variety in between because it really depends on the background that you come in with. Then I have another one, which is leveraging your private contacts. I've seen it so many times that people say, I don't know who to reach out to. I have no one. They do have family, they do have friends, they do have online contacts. If you're on LinkedIn, you probably have some sort of contacts, right? You can reach out to them. You can see if they need solutions for that. And other than that, you still can do kind of cold calling. Just reach out to random people that you think are in a niche that you want to go into. You can just gather information. If you don't close them, well, fair enough, you learn something. You ask them questions. You see what pain points they have. You try to understand things. It all gives you leverage later down the line when you build solutions. So keep that in mind. And lastly, again, one emphasis on your offering can be minimal and flexible. You just want to have a front-facing offer, something that hooks the client, makes it easy for them to come to you, so you can sell them something, might be even something free for you to just gain experience and knowledge and understanding. And then you can basically sell them something bigger after that. Now, with that said, we already touched a couple of things about sales, which is kind of the next point where it comes in, because once you did outreach and people actually starting to come to you, so you get kind of warm leads inbound or potentially outbound as well, then we end up at the sales part, which is right here. And this is where the magic happens where you obviously actually close your first project. And this is the most rewarding thing of the whole voice AI agency, because once you close your first client, you're getting hooked and you start actually seeing patterns, making more money, refining your systems, and actually starting to build a real business. So a couple of things that are in here I already mentioned previously, but let's just go over the first couple of bullet points so I can explain a little bit more along the way. So when starting out, ensure to stay more flexible if it comes to your offering, hand over solution. So this is a really, really important one. And I say that because in the beginning, you don't have the real experience. So you listen a little bit more to what the client actually has to say and the pain points they have, not the solution. Very, very important. They often seem that they know what they want, but they don't actually really know what they need, which is another thing. We're going to dive into this a little bit later in the additional notes. But definitely make sure you have a flexible offer so you can adjust it to the client's needs, especially in the beginning. If you're not established, you are still finding your way, right? So you don't have an offer that is actually super good. You have something to get them in the door, and then you try to adjust it to fit their needs, see that you can close the project and gain experience, because this is the main thing you want to do with the first couple of sales that you get. You want to use it to gather experience, see what works, see what doesn't work, get data out of it, make a better offer, and then just start refining this whole process over and over again. Then the next one we've already discussed. Oftentimes you can have a front-end offer to get them through the door, build trust and momentum. So like I already mentioned, the beginning of like the front-facing offer is something very easy, something super small that you can probably deliver in barely any time, that you can already use from a predefined template just to get them hooked, show them that something works, because that helps you to get all of the trust that you need to work with them on a longer scale, because this is the main thing. You need people's trust in order for them to work with you. So this is the easiest way of getting into it, and that doesn't need to be the fully fledged solution. If you think about building a voice agent that can book appointments, reschedule them, connect to the CRM systems, potentially even do automated follow-ups, do cadence calling, there are so many things you can build around it. That's way overkill, and it will definitely also overkill the client, because they're not going to be down to pay 20, 30,000 right from the start if they don't even know you. So building a solution for, like, let's say $500 to $1,000 in the beginning of a more basic setup that helps them to come to you, and you can build something and they see it actually brings value. This is all you need. From there, they're hooked. They know you can deliver, and then they actually come to you automatically with more work. So it's kind of like a win-win in the first place. And lastly, right here is prioritizing getting your first project, then the monetary gains. This is super, super important, because obviously since you don't have any previous experience, any kind of project that comes in, you want to kind of leverage as much as you can. You want to squeeze any possible good outcome for you out of it, which means that you sometimes don't even charge them at all. You might even just offer them a free consultation, or maybe even a completely free solution in return for a case study or a testimonial. Because if people are down to publicly share anything about the thing that you built for them and that it's good and that they recommend you to someone else, it builds trust. This is stuff you can repost even on LinkedIn, on YouTube, or wherever you want, or on your website even, so that other people see you built something for another client and they were actually happy with it. It just gives you the trust you need and shows as well that you know what you're talking about. And all of this becomes more and more important, which again just brings us back to the very first step, learning and understanding voice AI. Right? The more you can learn about voice AI, the better you understand it, the more industry experience you have, the more experienced you are with the technology stack, which is always something that becomes super, super relevant, even in sales. That also means once you have sales calls or discovery calls, where you literally just go through all of those calls and basically help the client answer their questions about anything they have from the technical side. So that really, really helps you. Then we got some additional notes right here. The first one is understanding their pain points, because obviously you want to understand what they are struggling with, because that's going to be the easiest thing you can sell up on. Because if they're emotionally attached to it, it's very easy for you to even front face that offer a lot easier than you would otherwise, right? Understanding the pain points is a big thing, because if I'm struggling with something and I'm looking for a solution, it kind of like feels a bit tense from my side, because I just want to find something that solves the problem and gets rid of it. So this is a very, very neat thing to keep in mind, because it helps you to make your offer more sellable. Then you want to obviously sell the outcome and not the product. I know we always love it, especially when you build a product. You're going to be super, super proud of it. You're going to love the thing you build. You say it's the best thing out there. The thing is, no client really cares about that. They don't care how you solved it. If you solved it with bamboo, it doesn't really matter for them. They just care about the results. So it's more important that you focus on selling the results instead of the solution itself. And that is something that accounts for anything. Whether you build it with no-code tools or a fully custom solution, they don't really care, even if it's not scalable. It doesn't really matter for in the beginning if you just want to have a front-facing offer that helps you to get the clients in the door for your first offerings. Now, there are tons of things that I can say as well where it makes sense to have a really good structure in place, and that's usually when you deal with more enterprise client, because you have a lot more regulations. But then obviously if they would come to you, you would also charge them properly upfront. Something to mention. Then another super critical one that I think a lot of people don't even think about. Clients often know what they want, but they don't know what they need. So I have seen it so many times that people come to us with crazy things that they want to have built with voice AI. And to give you a more basic example, think about some person that comes to us and says, I want a booking agent that can book things into my CRM, and it should also be able to reschedule the appointment, and it should also be able to cancel the appointments that it books. Now, while this sounds really cool, I'm pretty sure, especially for the beginning, they're not even going to close on this project, because for you building this whole setup out is going to be very expensive. It's just going to be expensive. Now, we have built $30,000 projects, and these $30,000 projects are very thorough. They're thoroughly laid out. And even though they look simple from the front end and the functionality looks simple, there is a lot of stuff that goes on the back end side. And if you've seen my videos about appointment scheduling and rescheduling versus cancellations, you know how complicated those things are going to be. So this is one thing, the pricing, right? That makes things an issue, but it doesn't really answer the question. So let me get something that actually answers the question perfectly. How many of the calls that they actually getting are about rescheduling something, and how many are about canceling? I can most likely promise you it's in a very, very small percentage, potentially even none at all. They just want it because it sounds fancy and it sounds like something that helps them, but in the end, it just blows the price, doesn't really bring them the value, because what they want is they want to make more business, they want to make more money. So if you help them to bring the people in the calendar, they are there. And rescheduling, okay, I maybe understand this is something you can argue, but cancellations are usually kind of neglectable. If you want to cancel something, you got to find another way. And the harder you make it for canceling, maybe the customer still stays and just goes with the meeting. So that is another thing you just want to keep in mind. You want to focus it towards the revenue or the potential outcome that the client can get, instead of just jumping on whatever they want to have solved. And the cool thing is that this will not only improve the deliverability of whatever you offer to the client, but it will also make them more confident about you understanding that you actually want something good for them, because you can sell them on value instead of just offering a solution. Then the next thing is something we already mentioned: offer discounted pricing in return for a testimonial. Obviously, you want to get social proof. This is the best social proof you can get. If your client gives you a good testimonial based on whatever you delivered for them, that's going to be golden. You want to list that definitely on websites, on other platforms, potentially even put that maybe even in your, in your headers or something, if there's a really cool one, because it just gives a little bit more social proof. And in the beginning, you want to take as much of that as possible. And lastly, there is one that probably focuses more on the people that already have some industry experience and potentially context that they can sell solutions to a lot more expensive, which is having proper contracts in place. And this becomes super relevant if you're not offering things that we promote in our community for beginners, things like handover solutions, because if it comes to proper contracts, you want to make sure that you have them right in the place, so you avoid things like scope creep, for example, liabilities, IP. There are so many things you wanna make sure you're on the safe side, because they can just backfire to you. And the last thing you want is that a client wants a refund because of a solution you spent 3 months on building, but they just don't want it anymore, or they see whatever you built doesn't deliver and it's not up to their standards or to the scope that you initially discussed. So having all of this signed and in proper contracts is super crucial. And our community members, for example, have templates for that available. They can just use them right out of the box, customize them, and then just head off from there, do some adjustments, and basically start focusing on the actual business instead of the contracts. So that's just something I wanted to put out. Now, what happens after you've done the sales? What happens after you close the client? You're obviously going to create the project, right? You're going to work through with the client using tools like Slack, whatever that looks like. We have a whole setup of deliverables available for different solutions. So check out my offer video. It's probably going to be linked somewhere. And once that's done, we're going to head to the more important thing, which is the delivery of those projects. And I've written down 3 little points with a couple of additional notes, like with the other slides too, and we're just gonna go over them. Number 1 is you fully implement the solution on the client system. And I'm specifically referring to the solution that I recommend most to our beginners, which is a handover solution, meaning that you build out everything on the client's tech stack, so on their accounts, so they are paying for it themselves and you just implement things. There are tons of reasons, I'm not gonna go into that now. I have covered that as well in the offer videos, so you definitely wanna check that out. But the goal is that you have everything over at their side, so that they have a fully working and implemented live environment with a system that they can use right out of the box. This is super important, because once it works, you've not only proven yourself that it actually does work, but you also have the client who's satisfied and seeing that it actually does its job. And I can tell you though, when you put it in a live environment, it's most likely going to have issues, because the way you test or we test and the actual target group that calls with the voice AI test or interacts is going to be different. There's going to be quite a lot of variability on how they interact, and you're gonna find issues that need to be solved on a more ongoing basis, which is why we have the third point right here, which is offering quality control sessions. That basically means that we include a set of 2 quality control sessions for smaller projects, where let's say twice a week we're gonna go over the results that the AI created. So all of the transcripts, we see how well it did. We check it against success validations and some other key metrics and see where we can improve it, where we can make little tweaks just to get more out of it. So this is something that can be part of this handover solution. And from there on, you can even just offer the maintenance packages, etc., to make sure you can continue refining AI. Because as you know, AI hallucinates from time to time. And depending on how you instructed it, you need to optimize the instructions over and over again. It's not one thing that you create once and that's it. It's more like a trial and error to see how well you can get it to perform, and that you can obviously make the most out of the system that you've set up. And with that out of the way, you should have a better picture of delivery. The least thing I want is that you understand to define those things properly, as well as in the sales calls, in the contracts, because you want to avoid scope creep, which is something that happens very frequently if it comes to things like quality, like handovers, because they see there are problems and they want them fixed. But with AI, it's just not as straightforward that you say you have a solution that works 100% of the time. It's more like somewhere in the 80-90% range for the very first setup, and then when you do control sessions, might go up to like 90. 95 is already very critical, but if you do enough testing and you offer them really great setup, you can get there as well. Now let's go over the additional notes that I added here, because they're also super important. And this one is one that we definitely learned ourselves the hard way. Do not let the client test before it's ready. We had it many times that client wanted to see the solution so we can showcase them something. The problem is once you showcase them something or have them test it, they fire back with tons of feedback. Now, if it's a small project, that's going to be super painful because you're going to spend a lot of more time on it. Because while you actually test something and they want to see it, it's obviously still not fully deployed. It's not developed yet. You create something, it has bugs. The client sees them and they maybe make 20 test calls. They are not satisfied. They're getting really angry. They might get frustrated. They hit you back with a lot of feedback. They hit you with extra adjustments. And this is just unnecessary things that you need to put on top of whatever you're already doing just to make them happy. So try to avoid having the client test things before they're ready, because it just causes extra problems. Now, in case it is a bigger project, in these cases, you can definitely do that, but then you would structure it out in phases, meaning you structure the project in different phases. Let's say you charge $30,000 for your solution, and the phases are, or let's say it takes 60 days to fulfill. Maybe you make a phase after 15 days. Maybe you make a phase after a specific feature. And once the feature is implemented, you hand it over, or you can show the client that this is what it currently does. This is a feature. You can test this feature. They can test this feature and see then how it works. So you can structure it in phases, make sure that the client is not being overwhelmed and tries all kinds of things and then just pushes back on a lot of feedback. One little and really, really good advice I can give you right there. Then the next one, which I think is even a worse part, which is you should definitely not allow client adjustments during the active project. So whenever you're building a solution, make sure the client is not adjusting it, because that causes massive, massive trouble. We've had it many times that clients adjusted the system prompts and we didn't know why things didn't work anymore. So we had to debug a lot of things because they obviously don't even tell you. So these things happen. Make sure that you kind of avoid this by defining it upfront whenever you start the project. Just tell them, please do not do any adjustments until it's accepted from our side. But apart from that, please don't. So this is super, super important that you make this very clear, because it can cost you a lot of time. Then the next one is more like a smaller one. It's that you want to limit the amount of quality control sessions, which is also why I fixed it here with 2 control sessions for a smaller project. You want to make sure that you put a number to it, because if you just say, yeah, you include quality control sessions after that, the client can also just abuse it. They can say, yeah, it doesn't work. And then once you did the quality control session, you adjusted things, they say, yeah, but this was also not working, or this is also not working, blah, blah, blah. You gotta go back and forth and you just waste more time on something that should potentially be in a maintenance package in the first place. And then kind of like in combination with that as well, you wanna be transparent about the cost for additional features, because it's gonna be normal that clients, they see something is not working, or maybe even the voice AI reacts in a way that they don't expect it and they'd like to have an extra feature on top of that. Oftentimes, they just tell you to implement that feature, and this is not even on purpose to just say, okay, I'll just do it now, I'm not going to pay you extra. They don't even think about that. For them, it's kind of like self-explanatory. They think more of a mindset of, okay, I want to have this in place, please do it, instead of how much does it cost? Does it actually need to be implemented from another way? They see more the actual approach of fixing it instead of the whole work that goes in from the other side. So oftentimes, whenever you get feedback like this, it doesn't mean that you necessarily just need to implement it on your time and basically just swallow that pill. it's better to just tell them, okay, yeah, we can definitely do this. I recommend you doing X, Y, Z. But I want you to understand that this takes us at least 5, 6, 7, 8 more hours. And I'd rebuild them to you at the end, or I can basically just add them to the project scope. And then they can agree, or you can agree, or they can confirm whether or not they want to do that in the first place. So that's something to keep in mind. And lastly, that's when you want to ask basically for the case study. Once you've actually delivered the project and the client is happy, ask them for a case study about what you did, because you delivered it now, or you're basically ready to deliver it. What I would always do is I would probably mention that before I actually deliver the project to give the case study. So like right before doing the handover session, where you basically just have a last call with the client, show them the solution, show them what you did, implement things, and that's when you ask them for the case study and any potential upsells. So that's something I wanted to have there as well. And once you have done that, congratulations. That is probably one of the hardest things that people face in the space, delivering a successful project and getting paid for it, because there's already a lot of commitment that goes into it, where people are actually starting to drop off because it's a lot of more responsibility. But once you made it there, and I can promise you it's definitely achievable of getting there. We have many students that manage that, and they actually make a living just from voice AI alone. So this is something to keep in mind. And once you are there, once you actually managed it to deliver a project, then it's actually time to go back to niching down, where we come to the initial setup of where you found your niche. Now you delivered something, and now it's time to niche down, because once you deliver a project, you have data. And this data is so important because you can use it to analyze so many things. I've now mentioned it many times before, but the time you save and the money you make them is going to be your best sell on the next calls, or the next discovery calls, or potentially ads or any social content you run, because you can actually show them feasible results to the industry or the niche you go in. So let's, for example, say you deliver a project for a client that was not part of your actual niche. You would just choose the solution you built and you implement it because you have data on it. You just double down on that, even if it's not your exact niche. You just niche down into the niche of where you built the solution for, because that is the one where you now have experience and you can build a whole concept around it. You saw what the people are struggling with. You saw the solution you implemented. You know how much you sold it for. You know how much value it brings. So it basically helps you in so many aspects to just refine the process and make things better. So since I was so excited, I already skipped ahead of the points, but let's just go over them. Understand and leverage the data from your previous solution. Literally just what I said. You want to use the data to make more out of your offerings, etc. Work on understanding the pain points. Same thing. You understand what happens in the previous solution, and educate yourself more on how you could improve your deliverable. That is something that will most likely come anyways with the time, especially when you had the client and they were satisfied with the solution you built. They will most likely hit you up with more things to do for the voice AI to improve it, or potentially even cover other use cases in the same industry, which again, as you can imagine, brings more value to what you can offer as a core offering, because they are most likely not the only people who would benefit from a solution like this. Now, this is a super crucial point, and that is actually when we talk about really niching down. The first niching down is more for like a front-facing offer, so you have something to work on and get experiences. But this is the actual niching down. This is where you actually build really feasible solutions that you can start scaling, build out really cool maintenance or maybe even hosted packages for, that bring you a lot of more money in the long term. And as well, the client a lot of more value. Now, lastly, let's go over the couple of additional notes that I have down here. Calculate the savings and earnings from all calls that have been done on the client system. This is a way on how you can get data out of it. So what we usually do is we see how many calls we've done, how much the call volume is in general. So how many hours of calls did you actually have? You compare that to an actual employee that would need to be employed, sit there, talk on the phone, and then see the quality of the outcome, see the booked appointments, see the KPIs. You basically try to find as much matching values as possible that you can add together in like a monetary sense, right? How much time you've saved them. The time can be correlated to the price, the hourly rate of an employee, for example. These kind of things, that's something you want to use those numbers for to get data out of it. And lastly, we have used these details to target your ICP with. ICP is ideal customer profile. So since you now build a solution and you can start niching down, you know the industry this works in, you know the solution that works, you potentially even see more solutions that the client comes back to you, the previous one, where they need help with. And then you can literally just start building this customer profile around whatever data you have, and then start marketing towards that. And this is when you can actually start with this part right here, which is scaling. And that's where we come in, because we have done that already in a lot of different industries. So if you want to understand more about how scaling works and how you can actually then start taking your voice agency from a single project or multiple projects to having a more scalable solution or something where you can really hire other people, project managers and developers to outsource things to get more time for yourself so you can focus on other things like marketing, or let's say hire someone for marketing if you like coding more. This is things that we can discuss, and these are part of our Voice AI Bootcamp, where we teach people exactly how to leverage all of those informations to get from literally zero to having a fully blown voice AI agency that makes money, creates a life of freedom, a life worth living for that you can literally do from anywhere around the world on your very own terms. Now, if that sounds interesting to you and you want to learn more about that, definitely check out the link below in the description. It brings you to our free school community, or if you want to have some more tailored help, there is another link directly below that you can follow along, where you can have a chat directly with me in case you're already further ahead in the process and you want to skip basically the very basics. Now that's all I have for you now. I really hope this video was helpful to you, and if you have any further questions, you're most welcome to drop a comment below this video. And thank you very much for watching, for spending the time here, for following me along, and see you next time.